Hello and welcome to another post-game edition of the Aftershock. We're here with you after the Earthquakes 1-1 draw on the road against Los Angeles Football Club. Guys, we got a lot to talk about tonight. First of all, let's talk a bit about some of the stuff that was going on in the Slack. I think we need to get some of our non-Slack folks engaged in this conversation about the Quakes giving up stoppage time goals. I think we have a couple of differing opinions here. Jamie, I'm going to kick it over to you first because I think you're a little bit more passionate about this. So your thoughts about the Quakes holding on to this draw at the end of the match against LAFC?
This narrative needs to die. Alex needs to drop it. The announcers need to drop it. It hasn't happened since the last time the Quakes were at LAFC, and that was like 8 games ago. So they have not been giving up goals in stoppage time. I said before, it was not a repeatable thing. It was not something to be concerned with, and guess what? It hasn't. What has been a concern is getting a win, which, despite, I thought, a good performance tonight, the Quakes can't walk out with a win. However, the first ever draw against LAFC in the history of the rivalry.
Mm-hmm. Alex, your rebuttal here. I'm curious as to what you think, because it was characteristic of the team earlier in the season to be giving up goals late in games. What do you think? Is this a solved issue, or is this still an ongoing concern for the team?
Jamon, I think this is an opportunity for the team to take credit, for Luchi Gonzalez to take credit, because they're no longer as vulnerable in the final 10 minutes, in the final 15 minutes, in stoppage time as that they were at the beginning of the season. They figured out how to defend in those last-ditch dangerous moments. And it felt like deja vu all over again. The last time San Jose were in LA against LAFC, you had them allow a stoppage time goal to lose 2-1. It was the exact same situation they faced today, down to 10 men, soaking up all the pressure. Felt like it was going to happen all over again, and you have to give them credit for being able to hold out in those last few moments. And they haven't allowed a stoppage time goal like that in a few weeks now, and it feels like this team is improving in those second half situations. Their defense looks more solid, and we saw some adjustments tonight at the back that I think helped contribute to that.
Let's talk a little bit though about the goal here that the Quakes scored, because one thing that we had mentioned on an earlier show is the Quakes being, needing to be quicker on turning around on those change of possession opportunities, and we saw an opportunity here with Jack Skahan winning a pretty much a inadvertently lost ball by LAFC, and then delivering a pass across the field to Christian Espinoza, who then made a really nice play to score. So I'm kind of interested on your take, guys. Jack Skahan has a couple of pretty good games here for the Quakes. Is this solving some of the issues that we discussed in this last match after the Stanford Stadium game? Are these tweaks that can be made within the system, or are you still anticipating that the Quakes are going to be making some sort of move to bring in other players during this summer window? But more importantly, your thoughts about Jack Skahan's performance here. Jamon, what do you think?
Well, I think Jack Skahan is playing himself into a continued contract as a good option for the Earthquakes in these kinds of situations. When you've got an injury, when you've got players on national team duty, you need to be able to bring in people who are dependable. And that's going to happen even if you go out and get another star and you go like, let's get that DP left wing. Well, guess what? DP left wing is going to be like the starting left wing for Ecuador or whatever the heck. And so no matter what, you have to have these players at MLS. MLS plays through international windows. And by this time of the season, coming up to the All-Star break, every team in the league is thin because of injuries, because of national team duty, whatever the case. And absolutely, Jack Skahan showing that he belongs, that he can play. You can play him in the middle. You can play him on the left. I know he had a rough Open Cup game, but literally that was his first, game of the season. And since then, the 3 games he's been in, that he started in, since then have been quality. And tonight got the assist, was great. I thought on the creative side. Is he the answer at a 10? No. Is he a good backup in this particular situation? I think he's proving that right now.
Alex, how confident are you about Skahan's performance here and the team moving forward with him being an option if they need a replacement for somebody like Jackson Yueill, right? Because he's out due to both yellow card accumulation being the first reason, but then also being called into the U.S. men's national team. What do you think about Skahan here in this situation and for the team moving forward?
Skahan's been playing really well these last few games. He got the goal, one of the key goals in the California Classico, got a really, really good assist tonight. And more than that, it feels like he's actually driving play. He's adding intensity in the midfield. He's carrying the ball. He's distributing the ball well. He's pressing really well. It feels like he's playing high intensity soccer that's making the Earthquakes better. And that's not something that we expected from him at the beginning of this season. I think the player we expected to do that was Nico Shakiris, right? We expected, given the way he was playing in preseason, given what we saw from him at the U20 World Cup, to be able to step in as a backup in the midfield when Jamiro Montero is not available and push the tempo, to come on the field as a late sub and push the tempo. But Nico Shakiris hasn't looked as comfortable in there yet. And Jack Skahan, the 25-year-old former college player, is the unlikely kind of player who's stepped into that role and absolutely deserves all the credit for the improvement that he's shown out there. He's not, multi-dimensional, incredibly, technically gifted player, but the energy that he's bringing into these games and the dynamism that he's adding to this offense has been really important at a time where it's felt for the last few weeks like the Quakes are kind of losing steam. When Jack Skahan's in there, it doesn't feel like they're losing steam.
Yeah, and I think if we want to unpack this a little bit more, we could look at some of the other subs that were made during this match. I mean, Tommy Thompson being another player, right? We saw a bit of an issue there, a little mix-up between Tommy and Benji, in a moment in which Benji could have really used a confidence booster, right? And this would have been a very great opportunity. Jamon, what are your thoughts about that, both in the subs with Tommy Thompson coming on as somebody who's been filling the bench for the Quakes, and Benji Kikanovic too, who's really been struggling to find his form for this team?
Well, I think Benji's coming on in order to give Moore Abobasi a break, because once you go down to 10 men, you need that striker, and the Quakes kind of predictably dropped into a 4-4-1, which is pretty normal for a team that's playing with 10 men once that red card happens. And his job is to pressure the back line and to force them to try to move the ball, put some pressure on them to see if the Quakes can kind of win an errant pass and be able to break. And it happens at times. The problem is in the transition, Kikanovic made, I would say he made one poor decision. There's another one I think fans are on him about that was really Tommy Thompson's fault. Tommy Thompson didn't give him the space when he came across, and he's shown he's able to come across and hit a left-footed shot before. Tommy Thompson's right on top of Benji and really should have just dropped back or made a run in behind to be able to give Benji that space. And Benji sees Tommy there and just kind of lets the ball go and lets Tommy try to pick it up. Obviously that's less than ideal situation, but I blame Tommy Thompson more for that. Look, was it a good necessarily stint from Benji? No. But I don't think he's asked to do more than give Abobasi a break and go out there and chase guys for a bit. Also, Tommy Thompson, it's kind of a little bit disappointing to see Jack Skahan come off and Tommy Thompson go on, but we know why. Jack Skahan's not 90 minutes fit yet. He started 3 games and he's not 90 minutes fit. And, they're going to make that sub, and particularly in a red card situation, you want to get some fresh people out there, some fresh defenders out there to be able to handle it, because you're going to get wave after wave after wave of pressure, and they did. And so Tommy's out there to try to again bring some fresh legs into the situation for Skahan, who's really not 90 minutes fit and hasn't gone 90 in any of these games, I don't believe.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really picked up on, though, regardless, is that this team continues to shape themselves well defensively, according to Luchi's system that we've seen throughout the season. They have that discipline, right? I feel like Tommy is still a part of that. Alex, I saw you smirk a couple times as Jamon was talking. Are you in complete disagreement about Tommy Thompson here, or what's your, what are you thinking about right now in terms of Tommy coming off the bench and Jack Skahan having to come off because, as Jamon mentioned, he likely is not 90 minutes fit?
Look, we've seen bad performances from Benji Kikanovic and Tommy Thompson. We know what they look like. This was not one of those performances. They were just put in an incredibly difficult situation where there wasn't much they could do to stand out. And they made the best of it. And yeah, they had that mix up, which was probably Tommy Thompson's fault for not giving Benji Kikanovic width. and not letting him take the shot on his left foot, which is a bummer for Benji, given that he had done well to get himself in that situation, and he hasn't had a ton of opportunities, or he hasn't taken the opportunities he's had this season, and so I'm sure he'll be bummed about that. But there's really not much more that we could ask of them in this game. Hearing from the PR team that we're going to be speaking to Luchi Gonzalez momentarily, and another player as well. And I do briefly, before we get to the press conference, want to mention, you're talking about the system. I feel like we're bearing the lead here, because the big storyline tonight, the big narrative tonight that I know Jamon Moore is very excited to talk about. He's waited a long time to talk about, 2 years, 3 years. He's waited to talk about the fact that the San Jose Earthquakes today played in a 3-5-2.
Oh, 3-5-2.
3-5-2.
I was wondering what you were talking about. I knew this was coming. Yeah.
Ish. Not quite a 3-5-2. Jamon, how would you describe it?
No, I completely agree that the ish. And so here's the thing. I, put out a tweet before the game where I basically said admin doesn't want to put out the formation because they don't know it. And the reason for that was clear. There were 6 defensive players, not even counting Carlos Guerrezo. So if you count Guerrezo, 7 defensive players, and besides Daniel, that were listed in the lineup. And normally we get a formation, and that's useful for us as media, because then we kind of can know like what we're looking at and where people are supposed to be, instead of spending the first 5 or 10 minutes of the game trying to figure out where everybody is and what the formation is supposed to be. Certainly makes life a little bit easier on the media. And if we're at the stadium, we're going to get game sheets that literally show us the formation. So if we were at the stadium today, I'm sure LAFC does what the Quakes do. You get in your chair and someone comes around and they hand you the starting lineup, and it shows a formation, and always has, right? Ever since I've been at least a part of the media. And so for them to all of a sudden go like secretive, and the Earthquakes Twitter account going back and forth with me about, I'm going to lose my job if I DM you and send you what the formation is. I'm like, I'm media. Come on, guys. I mean, really? And then so I sent a text to PR, and PR's response was, we were literally told by Luchi to not reveal the formation before the game. Thereby, I can only take from that it's not the standard formation. And I know what Alex is saying, and I know at times it looked very similar, but that's, I think, one reason why they were able to shift to it, is because it's not that much different than the way that they would normally set up. When the ball goes to one weak side, the other outside back drops back. Like, it all, in the end, it's not that different. What was different that I liked a lot was the ability for Christian Espinoza to pick and choose where he wanted to be.
Exactly.
That's why they got the goal.
Yep.
Because
Christian Espinoza was running head on with the ball at his feet against the center backs, which is not something we often see, right? We see him often play out on the wing, and we got to see that tonight. Alex, your thoughts about some of what Jamon had to say in terms of the formation here. Was it solidly 3-5-2? Is it 3-5-2-ish? Or what do you think? And the other thing I found quite surprising was the withholding of information in terms of the formation as well.
Well, every coach is secretive at some points. I think Matias Almeida would never have let a formation sheet out over his dead body.
But it was always the same, so it didn't really even matter. Like,
but there was no formation under Matias Almeida. Let's be real here.
I think it also is important to like, the question that I want to ask Luchi Gonzalez is whether he sees it as an entirely new system and formation that completely changes the way he sees this team playing and the way they approach the game, or if it's just one small adjustment. The fact that he wanted to withhold that information makes it seem like he was envisioning it like it was a bigger deal and like it was a really full system change. And I think it's worth breaking down what exactly was changing. The key difference was that you have 3 center backs on the field: Tanner Beeson, Rodriguez, Jonathan Mensah. And at times at the beginning of the game, it looked like they hadn't really changed the system. It looked like it was a standard back 4, Tanner Beeson at left back, Carlos Acapo right back, and Paul Marie at left wing, replacing Benji Gacanovic, or where Cade Cowell would usually play in the lineup. So it looked more or less like a standard 4-2-3-1 in the first few minutes. But then what you saw start to happen was that Carlos Acapo would drift forward a little bit into more of a win-back role, balancing him out with Paul Marie a little bit more. You'd see Christian Espinosa in the center more, and then it would start to look like a 3-5-2. And it's a slight adjustment, but tactically, Jamon's right. There's a couple key important differences. The biggest one being Christian Espinosa playing more centrally, and that did a few like big knock-on effects for the way the team played. One, as Jamon said, it allowed him to post himself higher up and run in behind more, and that's how they scored the goal. It allowed him to press higher up on LAFC's center back and cause more danger. Really, in the press, essentially, they were marking both center backs, which caught LAFC off guard and disrupted their buildup. It also connected him more with Jeremy Ebobisse. And that was something that I really like, because Jeremy Ebobisse all too often in these games feels like he's off on his own island, playing on another part of the field, disconnected with the midfield and with the other forwards. But tonight, because you had Espinosa playing more centrally, there were more combinations between the two of them. They were able to make more overlapping runs, more dynamic runs. Jeremy Ebobisse felt like he was a part of the system for the first time in a few weeks. So those were a bunch of reasons that I liked this formation. And it's a slight adjustment. It's not a huge adjustment. You more saw it on defense than you did in the sort of build-up phase, offensive phase. But I think it was a really, really well-timed adjustment from Luchi Gonzalez, and want to give him credit, because for the last few weeks, what have we been saying? The narrative has been that they're running out of ideas, that they're getting predictable, that teams have figured out ways to shut down Christian Espinosa, shut down Jeremy Ebobisse, and stop the San Jose Earthquakes from scoring goals. And tonight, Luchi Gonzalez showed a new formation. And you know what? I think it worked. I think this was a resounding success at LAFC, regardless of their past form, a tough place to play. And to get a draw when you're down 10 men and to look good, maybe even the better team, before that penalty call, before the red card, I think Luchi Gonzalez will be pleased with the way that this formation change worked out.
I want to build on that, because Alex is making some excellent tactical points there, and I don't give him enough credit at times, but he does have a good tactical eye, and I want to. Yeah,
wow,
I can give you a little love sometime. Hey, started off the show criticizing you, so I can give you some love
thanks,
now.
Alex.
No, but let's talk a little bit.
Don't know what to do with myself.
let's talk a little bit about why that worked so well. I want to add a little bit to it, because with Espinosa central, when Ebobisse comes back, right now the back line does not have to be comfortable back there. Espinosa kept that back line stretched because he was central. If he's a winger, the only person he's stretching and forcing to make a decision is the left back, right? So forcing a center back to decide, do they come back with Ebobisse and then getting 1v1? I'll take Christian Espinosa 1v1 with a center back in this league any day of the week, and it paid off tonight, right? And a pretty good center back at that in Mamadou Fall, right? A guy who has been playing in Europe and is back now, and but that's why it was key. The second part that worked really well is, I got to say it, just despite how good Montero and Yule are at certain phases of the game, I'm sorry, the Skahan did a better job finding tonight the right pass between those two in the right situations, and the Quakes have had problems with that decision making. So Skahan in the middle making the right decision, and Gruezo as well, I think also did a pretty good job finding the right pass in certain situations and helping the Quakes be able to get out of the back. That's a huge difference. Huge difference. The last two games, it's been better. Tonight, it made a real solid difference in the
in the
first half, obviously, up until the red card, obviously.
Before you add in, Alex, I'm wondering though too if the tactical change, if the formation change is what really can be responsible for a lot of that, is not just the personnel change here as well. Because yes, we could say that Jamon Montero has been having difficulty finding that pass, but is it because he hasn't had that opportunity to find the striker who's been tucked underneath, while we have another striker pushing those center backs more towards their own goal, which is what I thought was really interesting in this match. one thing that I noticed, and maybe you guys can speak to this a little bit, whether you agree or disagree, is Jeremy Ebobisse had more opportunities to face goal and take on defenders. And I know, like, when we were sitting together last match, Alex, we looked at each other and we were a bit surprised at how effective Jeremy Ebobisse was in taking on defenders one-on-one against the LA Galaxy. We saw that again tonight against LAFC, and I think that's another tool that that Luchi can use to exploit some defenses when the pushing out to the wings gets a little bit exhausted and teams are already anticipating that. So actually curious, Alex, as to your thoughts about Ebobisse's role in that aspect and whether or not that's what really, as Jamon said, made the switch to the two strikers so effective.
Well, I think there was a confluence of events. One, I think the tactical changes caught LAFC off guard, allowed San Jose to kind of jump the gun early on and put LAFC on the back foot. And then because that happened, and you had players like Skahan who are high intensity, hungry, and ready to up the intensity, that's what made the Earthquakes look good in that moment. So I think it's both the tactical changes and the personnel were well timed in order to make that difference. And yeah, I would love to see Jeremy Ebobisse get more involved like he did tonight. I think that this is absolutely a formation change that Luchi Gonzalez should use more often to get Jeremy Ebobisse more involved, because we want to see Jeremy Ebobisse in different pockets. We know that he can find himself in the box and find, get on the ends of crosses and score that way. But we haven't seen him get on the ball at the top of the box, have shots. We haven't seen him, get more into wide areas, which is surprising given that he spent a long time with the Portland Timbers on the wing and succeeded there, even if it wasn't his favorite position. So we know that Jeremy Ebobisse can succeed with his, facing the goal, and would like to see him in more of those situations. But I think we're going to head over to the press conference now with Luchi Gonzalez.
Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight's post-game press conference following the 1-1 draw with LAFC. Let's start with the first question from Alex Morgan. Alex, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
You can.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, Luchi. It's good to speak to you tonight. I want to ask about the formation tonight. Looked like maybe a 3-5-2-ish. We saw Christian Espinosa maybe playing a little more centrally. You saw maybe Carlos Acapo getting up into more of a wingback role. It looked like maybe three at the back at times. What was the way that you envisioned this? Was this like a complete system change, or was it just one small adjustment in playing Espinosa more centrally and shifting the balance of the back line a little bit?
Yeah, look, obviously, we had been showing consistency in our formation and our personnel throughout the season, and that's when players are available. We had some challenges with, Jackson gets called because of an injury in the Gold Cup, and then Baldissimo's coming back from an injury, and he's just not ready. We thought he would be this week. And then Judson, he gets flare-ups with his knee that doesn't allow him to fully train sometimes and be available to play. And so there was a case where he wasn't cleared to start. He would have limited minutes, maybe coming off the bench. So based on the circumstance and the challenge, having missing some of these 6-8 profiles, right, in midfield, we had to get creative. We had to think about obviously playing a very good LAFC team in LA, and trying to be organized defensively, yet get pressure on the ball, and also attack, try to hurt them with the ball. So that was the formation and lineup that we thought could do it from the start. Circumstances changed there with the red card. That we weren't able to be as aggressive with that formation, and changed to 4-4-1, which almost became like a 5-3-1 at the end, with wingers sagging when needed. But look, we closed the game out with a lot of effort and focus and togetherness, and it's an important point. So I'm proud of our guys.
Let's take a next question from Marco Kolovich. All right, we'll come back to Marco. Let's take a question from Jamon Moore. Jamon, can you hear us?
I can. Hey, Luchi. Thanks for the time. And it feels like, given everything that transpired in the game tonight, that a draw is a good result for the team, if not the 3 points you would have wished for. Can you take us through? I know you got a yellow card, and I don't want to get you in trouble with the league, but can you just explain to us what was explained to you around the kind of electricity going out quickly enough? It affected the MLS season pass feed. We didn't have the game for about a minute, 2 different times. And then when it came back, it seemed like there was a review of the Acapla situation in the box. But the announcers had said something about there was actually a problem even with VAR reviewing it due to the outage. So can you kind of take us through what you were being told at least? Thank you.
Muted.
Yeah, look, I wasn't happy that being told that the power went out and they're not able to review it properly, and then that coupled with the fact that I thought we should have heard a whistle based on the way that play looked live, because I feel it would have been consistent with the way the referee was handling the game. He whistled the one on Paul Marie, which was clearly not given because arm was in a natural state, and then the whistle for the actual PK. And I thought there should have been a whistle on the Acapla play. So, not being happy with that, and maybe said a few words that I'm not proud of with the kids, but certainly not aimed at anybody, just frustration, and I got my yellow, but it's fine, it's well earned, and I adjusted my behavior because I need to show that we remain calm and move forward and take on the next play. But that was the situation. And look, I haven't really seen the Acapla play yet. In fact, we purposely at half, as a team, said no players, no staff will look at the Acapla play again, because we don't want to build more frustration. The first half is done. Let's focus on the second half.
All right, let's go back to Marco. Marco, can you hear us? All right, we'll take a second question from Alex Morgan.
Hey, Luchi, thanks for taking a second question here. After the Cali Clasico game, we were listing off a bunch of the guys who could potentially play in midfield, and you sort of, in passing, mentioned Miguel Trauco, and I don't think I took you entirely seriously about that at the time, but tonight, we saw Miguel in the midfield, midfield with Guerrero, Miguel, and Skahan is probably not one that you would, at the beginning of the season, have written into the starting 11 at any point. But what did you think about the way that they worked together tonight? And is that something you think we could see going forward in the future?
Marco's mic's not working. So, yeah, look, going into this game, we knew we were going to have some challenges, right, during what we learned in the week. As I mentioned earlier, Miguel is a very smart player. He has a lot of experience. He takes care of the ball, and he's naturally a very measured defender. And we felt like it was an option to put him. He has played in the midfield before earlier in his career, not recently, but we knew we could have a ball recovery, measured defensive type player that can take care of the ball and spray it next to Gresso to give us some good defensive solidarity. And then in front of them was Jack, who we definitely wanted to be available between lines, but most importantly, running in behind. Late runs, surprise runs in behind. I thought he did that very well and stretched the game for us and caused problems. And then look, you got a really talented player like Nico, and maybe if we didn't get the red card, he would have come into this game, push the game, and try to score a second goal. But Nico has his strengths, which for us, me is more between the lines, right? Linking play, building the game forward. But we wanted to start with those characteristics that I mentioned. And we were planning on ending the game with similar, if not different characteristics, depending on what we feel we needed. The circumstances changed, and we needed to defend well.
Take a final question from Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, Luchi, got another, I think, excellent performance out of Jack Skahan tonight. And you talked just a little bit about him there, but he got the assist. It felt like his reading of the game tonight was really good, being asked to go from a winger, back into a central midfield role. And he found really good passes at different times, including the assist to Espinoza, as I mentioned. What is it that you think is standing out right now about the opportunities that he's been getting? Thank you.
Muted.
Yeah, really proud of this young man. A player that from preseason worked really hard, got an injury early preseason, which kept him out, and other people got opportunities. So that's kind of how the season started. And then he's just gradually been working his way back into the competition and the depth. Never complaining, never showing a poor attitude. Just great teammate, great energy in training, playing second team games, a few second team games with great intentions and consistency. And then when he got the opportunity with the first team, he's been showing good energy and consistency and even versatility, right? So really proud of his focus and how he carries himself and then on and off the field. So he's going to continue to help us in different ways.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be back out here with players shortly.
Good night, guys.
Okay, well, some interesting responses from Luchi there. You guys went right for the hard-hitting questions. Alex, asking him right away about the formation here. What are your thoughts about Luchi's response to his setup coming into tonight's game?
Honestly, that was not what I expected his response to be. It sounded like he kind of stumbled upon the 3-5-2 formation out of necessity rather than scheming it up in the tactics room in order to change up the lineup and catch LAFC off guard. I think he should take a little bit more credit or seriously consider this as an alternative to use when the team is 100% back to full fitness, because it worked. And heck, if that's what it takes, if you need to stumble upon these random formations that when you're at the end of your depth chart in the middle of summer, then you got to take what you can get. And I think he stumbled into a sort of a really good trick here tonight.
And something else that I thought was quite interesting, he was pretty explicit about Jutsen's knee issues, right? His chronic knee issues. And that spells a lot of trouble, I think, for Jutsen, his career, and might give us a little bit of a hint as to where the Quakes are going to be looking in terms of finding some reinforcements for this team. Jamon, before we go into your question about the power outage.
It looks like we got JT joining us, so we need to cut over to that.
Hey, everyone. Today we have JT Marcinkowski. We'll start with the first question from Alex Morgan.
Hey, GT. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to speak with you. Talk us through what's going through your mind when Daniel comes out and challenges for that ball and you getting subbed on, in a situation where and how do you think the team reacted to that situation?
Yeah, I mean, not much was going through my head. I think that's the life of a goalkeeper. You always have to be ready for your moment. That's why we train. That's why we grind day in, day out as a group. There's never going to be a pretty moment where you're coming into a game. It's usually a red card or some injury or something happened. So I was just ready for my moment. And, at the end of the day, that's why I think we train so hard as professionals is to be prepared and to, be ready for that moment.
We'll take a second question from Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, JT. Obviously, it feels like a point that should be celebrated tonight. You guys had the lead, but, given the red card situation, you guys had to really kind of dig in there. And one of the shots you faced, was an open look from Carlos Vela that you were able to deflect out. Just talk about, what you're coaching back there, what you're asking the guys to do as you're feeling wave after wave of pressure. Thank you.
Muted.
Yeah, more than anything, I think I'm just trying to motivate them to continue. They defended their tails off for 30 plus minutes, being down a man. I thought everybody did great. I thought the guys who came into the match did phenomenal, controlling the tempo, and we even had a chance or two to maybe sneak one in at the end. But I'm just trying to communicate as much as I can and help the guys in the back with my voice. I think that's one of my, stronger qualities is my communication skills and leadership in the back. So, just bring that in and not be afraid of the moment, because at the end of the day, this is what I kind of live for, and I'm always ready.
We'll try again with Marco. Marco, is your microphone working? Okay, we'll circle back with the second question for Alex Morgan then.
Yeah, JT, tonight we saw, a back line that looked a little bit different. 3 center backs in there, maybe looks like a 3-5-2 at some points. What did you see from that? How does that change the way that you guys are building out and defending, and how do you think that worked tonight?
I mean, I think in the first half, we were all over them. I think the first 10, 15 minutes, we had a great amount of pressure against them, and kind of their goal was a little bit against the run of play. And more than anything, I should think it shows our versatility and I think the clear direction for the coaching staff as well. I think it's a bit of a new system. It's not much of a surprise. We've been playing something pretty similar all year. 4-3-3 or 4-4-2, whatever, the certain situation calls for it. And then to switch it up for this game, just because of personnel, because of matchups, I think the coaching staff did a great job of communicating their message really clearly, and guys really took it in. And, I think this was a match that we really wanted to win and get points down here. So although we didn't get all 3, I think taking a point back home and getting ready for Seattle will be a good one on Wednesday.
And we'll close with the final question from Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, JT, yeah, you mentioned, obviously have to be ready to be able to go in there, but, now there's more competition, in the goalkeeper position, obviously. How has that kind of changed your approach, just in terms of your preparation, in terms of, how, having somebody who is, at your level that you can compete with, in the team, and how does that motivate you on a day-to-day basis and change things for you? Thanks.
Muted.
Yeah, good question. I think being a goalkeeper, obviously only one of us plays. And at the end of the day, it's not easy to take, not being the starter for the last few months or so. But the only way that it can go up is just to train harder. And I think that's something that I've been trying to work on and mentally get through, is just coming in every single day, head held high, and being ready for this moment. Who knows when it was going to come, or who knows when it'll come again, but just being prepared and being focused. And I think the competition with Daniel has been great. I think he's a great guy, and more than anything. And I think we have a really good kind of foundation with Aiden and Emmy as well. And the 4 of us work really well together. We're a good group, and I think we root for each other's success more than anything, because when the goalkeeper does well, more often than not, the team's doing well. So that's the most important thing. And just always ready for my moment, and just try and do everything I can to help the team win.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes tonight's press conference.
Okay, before we continue, really quickly, Jamon, if you want to just address the sound issues, I have a couple more topics, but if you want to start with that, we'll start with that, and then we can go into some of our reflection on the press conference material.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know I figured out what the issue is. I have a new laptop, and in my old setup, I did not have to do a double mute. Now I apparently have to do a double mute because you're getting feedback that I'm not hearing. So it's not like I'm hearing an echo. I'm not hearing the echo. So I just want to point out that once I muted my other area over here, which is for the show, I have to mute that, and then also mute. I have to unmute twice. Alice knows what I'm talking about. We've done this before, but I have to unmute twice. So I'm just pointing it out so that next time it happens, everyone just go, hey, Jamon, go mute.
What you didn't know is that I had actually gone down to my basement cellar for the press conference. And then because everybody complained, I came back up to the studio for the rest of it.
Hey, speaking of conspiracies, you had a really great question, Jamon, about the power outage that you brought up. I know folks on the Slack were kind of talking about this being a conspiracy, so they couldn't view the VAR and whatnot. But you want to kind of reflect on Luchi's response to his frustration with the situation and the no whistle, if you can kind of explain what he means when he says that.
Yeah, so obviously, let's go back to the Rodriguez, penalty. He steps on the player's foot. In the replay, it's very clear what happened. I thought maybe Wanga had stepped off of the pitch at the point that the contact happened, and I was hoping that was going to bail Rodriguez out. It didn't. He was clearly still on the pitch, and I think everybody in the Slack was like very clearly a red card, right? In the situation with the capo, he didn't get stepped on. There was leg contact, and it's not, I know, like in the minds of Luchi, it's an equivalence. In my mind, it was not an equivalence, and I don't feel the Slack felt, I think like half the Slack said clear pen, half the Slack said not a pen. And the problem was we also lost the feed. So, we were missing kind of probably some of the replays and other angles. I think what we didn't have the benefit of is as clear of an angle, given, but when we came back in the outage in Apple TV twice, it happened. I think it all happened for everybody, best as I could tell. And Luchi's mind, it was the same situation. In my mind, it was clearly a different situation.
Look, I agree with Jamon. I actually don't think it was a penalty, but I'm not even worried about the specific incident anymore. I'm thinking big picture, the conspiracy at large, which is what's important here. And I think it is a fantastic example of skullduggery shenanigans to plug the power right when the opposition team has a VAR call in their favor.
Shut down VAR.
I'm on your team on this one, Alex.
Across the world over the course of the next year, we don't see at the 2026 World Cup, the U.S. unplugging MetLife Stadium, unplugging the Rose Bowl. when there's a stoppage time penalty, then we're not playing soccer right, because that is such an excellent example of shenanigans that I think somebody has to take that strategy.
That's galaxy brain material. Jamie, you're not buying it.
No, well, so here's what I think is happening. There is very clearly, this looks like, the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner situation. Very clearly, or not Bugs Bunny, sorry, the Coyote and Roadrunner.
Why the Coyote?
There's a coyote-like person in that dark tunnel that we saw Daniel have to walk through in order to go to the back. There's somebody in there with a massive power switch. Yeah. And like they're just standing right there and they're watching the game, and at a convenient moment they're just going like boom, boom, like that. That's all it took. It was a moment, and VAR like went down. So what do we need now is we need to get everyone go in and buy LAFC a backup system for VAR, so that when VAR crashes, how we used to have like those big power backups under our desk back in the day in case your computer wouldn't crash in case of a power outage. You need like one of those big power outages for the VAR computers apparently in the stadium.
Jamon, but this could be so much bigger than that. Not only could you turn off the power, you could reroute the wiring so you would be able to control what angles the referee is seeing in the VAR box. There are lots of different ways where you could change the outcomes here. And so I think what it's going to have to be is there's going to have to be universal transparency. They're going to need to have all the wiring done in a transparent case and all the batteries proofed before every game by a representative from both teams. I think that's the only way to make the game fair anymore.
Okay. I want to go back really quickly to what we were talking about right before we had the privilege to speak with JT during the press conference. Just a bit on Judson here. And I just was going to ask you guys about how you felt about Luchi's very open, candid response to Judson's current situation. It kind of sounds like, in a way, like Judson's career might kind of be at its tail end here. I mean, if he's not able to perform because of chronic knee problems, that sounds like something that could be a career-ending concern. Is this perhaps why we're hearing about some of the midfield rumors in terms of signings that we're hearing?
I mean, I don't think this is new information that Judson has been struggling with fitness for the last 3 years. He's been on and off sidelined. And it's I don't think this is anything sort of revelatory here, but yeah, it's a bummer given the player that he was in 2019 with Jackson Ewell in the midfield holding it down. He's just what made him so good was his ability to cover ground in the midfield, and he's not able to do that anymore. And he can still do a job, he can still come on in those late moments and make an impact. But yeah, I would be surprised if the Earthquakes decide to renew his contract just because he's not able to be 100% match fit reliably anymore, and that's sad given that how much passion and energy and commitment he's given to this club over the last few years. But if you're Chris Leach, if you're Luchi Gonzalez, realistically, who needs Judson in there if you have guys like Miguel Trauco who are stepping in the midfield and doing great, guys like Jack Skahan who are stepping in the midfield and doing great, and if you have players who are willing to step to the plate and put in a shift there. As I said in the press conference to Luchi, I would have never expected a San Jose Earthquakes starting midfield with Carlos Gruezo, Jack Skahan, and Miguel Trauco. If you told me back in January that is the midfield they'd be playing against LAFC at BMO Stadium in July, I would think that something's gone horribly wrong. You're playing some sort of sick joke and the Earthquakes would be blown out of the water 7-0. All hell is frozen over. But that wasn't the case tonight. We saw Miguel Trauco actually put in a really, really good performance in the midfield. And Luchi Gonzalez had told us that this was something that was possible. After the California Classico, he told all the media, hey, we have options in midfield. We have Jack Skahan in midfield. We have Baldissimo. We have Judson. And he threw in at the kind of end of that, almost as like a throwaway, he threw in Miguel Trauco can play in the midfield. And I thought, oh, that's a little strange. Seems like, kind of a throwaway comment. It was not a throwaway comment. He was entirely serious. Miguel Trauco stepped into the midfield tonight and looked solid. We know he has the really good distribution of the ball. He's calm, composed under pressure. And he was, at left back stepping into the midfield quite often. So it felt like a pretty natural spot for him to end up. And, it worked surprisingly well with that new trio in the midfield.
And Jamon, I wanted to toss over to you before we get into the final section of the show tonight, just kind of like your general response, your feelings about JT's presser there, some of the things that he had to say about playing behind Daniel and his preparation for coming in and helping the team to secure the point in a very difficult situation.
Yeah, first off, real quick about Judson, a couple points there. First off, congratulations on 100th MLS appearance for Judson. It's a great milestone, obviously. He meant a lot to this team in 2019, but he came already with a lot of miles from Brazil, where they play about 60 games a year, which is, almost twice as much as MLS. And so, that's something that, I think was always a risk with him. And it's probably a reason that they declined his option. They did not pick him up for this season, and they renegotiated him onto a much different deal. I don't think this was necessarily an unknown. I think it was very much a known. And they may have even looked for a replacement and then decided, from a risk perspective, that they should go ahead and bring him back on just a different deal. And for him to be able to go 30 minutes in a game, I think is fine, other than when Carlos Gruezo is not available, and then all of a sudden you kind of got a problem situation, right? So, whether it's Cam Silly or somebody else, someone's going to need to step up into that, 6 role and be able to be that backup 6 in those situations. And Judson's definitely tried, but I think we knew that, he's been having some problems. Alex and I were at preseason, thanks to our patrons, and got a chance, to be there. And he was the one player who was on the side. And from my recollection, Alex, is that we didn't see him for like the first 5 or so at least games of the season. So he already kind of came in, behind fitness and things like that. And when you're got an injury and you're behind fitness, it's just really hard to be able to get into that situation. So coming back to your actual question here, Phil, if you could just repeat that real quick. Sorry.
Yeah. No, and actually that's kind of a good.
JT is
and we're talking about JT Marcinkowski, but thanks for kind of responding to that too, because I think it's an important thing. And I just want to add really quickly here, perhaps it seemed evident that there were issues with Judson, but I felt that tonight was the first time I had heard, and maybe I missed this in the past, so explicitly stated that the issue was his knees.
I think said out loud for everyone to hear.
I think he was very clear and direct about that. And that to me is very striking, because it says that, again, it's like a career-ending type of ordeal. You just can't spend too much more time running around playing professional, soccer at this level on knees that are dead. So
Yeah.
anyway,
You
back
know,
to
I'm sure this has been discussed
Marcinkowski, Jamon. You had asked him a couple questions here. Just kind
Yeah.
of your general thoughts about his feelings about stepping in for Daniel on the match.
Yeah, there was you know, in the preseason when I was speculating on why the Quakes brought in Daniel, I think a lot of people felt like I don't like JT, and the opposite is true. I like JT quite a bit. Specifically, he's an excellent person. He's a great communicator back there. We know he's great with his feet. He's proven that, you know, a lot over the years. But you can see tonight, and we've known it from all of our conversations with him. JT is a consummate professional, absolutely consummate professional. Like, he may be the most. He's got like a corporate front office gig after his MLS days are done. He presents himself, you know, kind of in that type of way where everything is very buttoned up. Everything he says is with a purpose type stuff.
I trust him with my taxes.
There you go. Trust him with your taxes. So all that being said, unfortunately, as a MLS goalkeeper, he is average, and he has seasons that are either quite up or quite down, is the experience that we have seen with his MLS data. It's not just MLS. It was also true with his Reno data. So unfortunately, the Quakes have had too much of that over the years. You had a great season from Daniel Vega, and then a terrible season from Daniel Vega. You had a couple great seasons from David Bingham, and then a couple terrible seasons from David Bingham. Like, and then same thing with Tarbell. Tarbell comes in, he looks great, and then you play Tarbell next season, and he looks awful. Like, this has happened so many times to the Quakes over the years. You have to know that at some point the front office is like, okay, we need to de-risk this situation. We can't go into the season not knowing is JT going to be great, or is he going to have a subpar season again. So they made the decision that I think they should have made, which they went out and got somebody who has consistently performed at a certain level, and that's Daniel. I think everyone has seen Daniel's quality. I don't think we were exaggerating too much when we talked about his potential. I think everyone has seen what his potential is in this league so far. That all said, again, you know, JT should be in this league, deserves to be in this league, whether he's a backup, a starter. I think it can go either way. I think when it comes to the San Jose Earthquakes, you know, it's going to be tough for him to unseat Daniel. But, you know, I think JT is a fantastic, you know, person in this team.
There's a couple points there I want to interject there. I think you're painting with broad strokes just a little bit. I think there are significant kind of quality leaps between a guy like Andrew Tarbell and Daniel Vega and a guy like JT Marcinkowski. So I don't want to, you know, all paint them with the same brush here. And I also want to point out that I think I want to give JT actually the capacity for growth, and I want to give him credit for that, because I do think that change in goalkeeping coaches has impacted him a lot. And we saw it, you know, last season. One of the reasons that his, you know, goalkeeping stats started to tail off is because they had no goalkeeping coach in San Jose, and significant changes in the backroom staff. And to have Aiden Brown in there right now, who's one of the top goalkeeping coaches in Major League Soccer, has made JT Marcinkowski a lot better. And I think that, you know, he has the capacity under a goalkeeping coach like Aiden Brown to be one of the better, you know, goalkeepers in Major League Soccer consistently. But Daniel clearly has shown stronger performances this season. It's going to be hard to unseat Daniel. And so where that leaves us is a really interesting question. Where does JT Marcinkowski, you know, sit long term? Because look, it is fantastic in games like this to have JT Marcinkowski come in off the bench and to feel secure about that. To know that JT Marcinkowski is a starting level goalkeeper, you don't have to worry if Daniel gets injured or Daniel gets a red card. But if I'm JT Marcinkowski, that's not where I would want to end up long term. I don't think that's not the role that any Earthquakes fans want to see a guy like JT Marcinkowski play in the long term. I think it's very clear that he is a starting quality MLS goalkeeper and should have that opportunity somewhere. And so if it's not at the Earthquakes, you have to think about, okay, this season, are you thinking about trading him in the summer? Is he a piece that you could move to open up space for other players in this roster, or do you wait until the end of the year? And do you risk leaving that second spot to Emi Ochoa, who is not, you know, proven in MLS yet, has not gotten MLS minutes, and you know, is, you know, still 15, 16, 17 years old. So I think there's a bit of an open question now that you start to see, which is, what do they do with JT Marcinkowski this summer? Is he committed to staying in San Jose for the year? Or if the offer is made, if the opportunity arises, is that a risk that you take in order to get some upside elsewhere in the roster.
All right, interesting viewpoint concerning the goalkeeper situation from both of you. And I think we're at the point now where we can move to the very end of the show because we're creeping up on an hour. So, Jamon, I'm going to toss it over to you first. Your closing thoughts before heading into the Wednesday night match against the Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that in a game that I thought the Earthquakes played pretty well for a road game, that they gave up a penalty and had a red card that really more dictated the outcome of this game for them than the rest of the performance. Like if you take those things in isolation away and you look at the totality of the performance, it's a game where they played well enough to go in and steal 3 points, and the Quakes need to steal some points on the road this season. They need to get at least another couple road wins and probably at least another 4 wins at home in order to be able to ensure that they are going to be in the playoffs. So tonight is another golden opportunity. It's happened too many times this season that is lost. But some of it is they created their own bad luck tonight. And, that's kind of unfortunate that there was just, individual situations because as a collective, I liked the change. I liked the 3-5-2. I liked the players that were out there that were available tonight and kind of what they brought. I thought the effort was top to bottom a very good effort. I think at times they even looked very, very good. And we're superior to LAFC in both phases of the game through stretches of the match. So it is highly unfortunate, but now it gets down to brass tacks. You got to come home against the Seattle Sounders. You have to get 3 points. You can't go into the All-Star break and you can't go into Leagues Cup break with it hanging over you that, you haven't been able to get a win in several games. We talked before it that the magic number was 7. Guess what? That magic number hasn't moved. It's still 7. They got to go out there. That was to get home spots, but it's not that much different to ensure a playoff spot, to be quite honest. So they need to go out there and get some wins. And, hopefully the transfer window is now open, as we've talked about, and we didn't want to belabor that point again tonight. But, the clock is ticking, as Alex is pointing to.
We could belabor it. It's always there to be belabored.
Right. Well, your fake watch is great because, hopefully Chris Leach has a real watch that tells him, what day it is today and when this window is closing. But
that's why he's paid the big bucks, is to get him the nice watches so that he knows how much time he has.
You got a few weeks. You got the break, and we'll see what happens. And right now, by the way, Kate Cowell is playing well enough with the national team, and a new rumor, take it for what you will. It's a rumor. It's probably his agent.
Jamon.
Anyway, new rumor of European interest. But if he keeps playing like he is right now, for at least the first and the third games of the Gold Cup, that interest is going to keep going. It's going to keep talking. People are going to keep talking about Kate Cowell.
All right, Alex, your closing thoughts.
Yeah, this was a good performance from the Earthquakes, and I think that was pretty evident to anyone who watched that first half. And I think it's unlucky, as Jamon said, that they come out of there with only a draw because of the tactical changes that Luchi Gonzalez made, because of the strong performances from guys like Jack Skahan in the midfield to step up when they needed it and bring intensity. I'm left after this game feeling optimistic about the Earthquakes. And I know that the MLS table looks a little scary right now, that the Earthquakes are in 7th place and barely holding on to like an automatic, in spot to the playoffs. But I think if you give this team a break on Leagues Cup, they'll be able to come back with a fitter squad, stronger, and hopefully new additions that will take them to that next level. And the fact that they've been able to adapt multiple times this season to improve their performance is like enough of a sign to make me confident that they'll be able to confidently walk into the playoffs. I think it's a little bit unrealistic at this point to expect them or hope for them to get a home playoff spot. I think that ship might have sailed already, and you'd have to kind of get some lucky breaks in games like these against Western Conference rivals. But with that said, there's still a lot left for the Earthquakes to prove and to fight for. this season. And so if I'm not wrong, Wednesday night is their last game before Leagues Cup. We're looking at one of the last matches for San Jose Earthquakes in Major League Soccer for over a month. Is that right, gentlemen?
That's right.
So in that case,
yeah, I mean, I don't know about other teams, but it is for the Quakes at least.
We will hope to see everyone there for a game where the Earthquakes are gonna want to put everything out there and get a win, because you talk about those 7 matches that they need to get to the playoffs. Home match against the Seattle Sounders, Western Conference rival, is huge, and I think it'll set the tone for the way they're going into Leagues Cup. If you go into Leagues Cup, the break with a big win at home against Seattle Sounders, that sets the tone for a much different break than if you lose and if you're starting to feel nervy about your position in the Western Conference table.
Yeah. So this is why last week when we did our Aftershock from Stanford Stadium, I had said that the Quakes really need to be focusing on their league matches and their MLS Cup League matches, not the Leagues Cup matches. I think it's really important that they do this. And this match on Wednesday night, as Jamon had mentioned, is going to be an important match for this team. I mean, to get a win at home, to get a win, period, is incredibly important if they want to make a serious run at getting a trophy. The other thing that I added on to that last week was that I felt that there was room for improvement in this squad. I know everybody's talking about new signings, and I do think it's important for the organization to be seriously considering bringing in some reinforcements for this team. But tonight, I think it proved that this team does have some room for growth. Luchi tried out some new things out of necessity, yes, but he tried some new things nonetheless. And they went to one of the more difficult places to get points in the league because of the environment, because of the team, because of particular players that they have. When you have somebody like Carlos Vela coming off of the bench for your squad, then you have a good squad. And that's aside from the guys who actually went out there and performed tonight for most of the match.
And because of the VAR sabotage.
Yeah, well, you know what? The Quakes still pulled out a point despite the VAR sabotage, Alex, and I think that's pretty impressive. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Quakes did show some improvement tonight. We did get to see Christian Espinoza go up against the center backs, which is something I would definitely like to see more often, not just cutting in from a wide position, but actually running up and pushing those center backs up against their own goal, as we saw, and giving Jeremy Abobasi an opportunity to play with the ball at his feet, facing toward goal, and not always having to win balls in his position as a 9, which we've seen so often this season. He can do that. He can bring down the ball. He can distribute to the other forwards on the team. But I think it's really special when we see him get that opportunity to play with the ball at his feet, facing towards goal, to make things happen. And I think tonight we saw a little bit of that, and we got to see Christian Espinoza do some magic as well, which was a lot of fun to watch. So my hope is that as a coaching staff, Luchi really reflects back on this match and takes seriously some of the things that they got out of it out of necessity. But this could be something that could be a tool for them moving forward. So I think that's going to be really important. Whether or not we actually see that, I don't know. Luchi might go back to what he's been doing mostly this season with the 4-3-3 once he has his guys back in place. Who's to say? But the important thing here is I really do think the Quakes need to go out and get those points against the Seattle Sounders on Wednesday night. That's going to be huge in terms of their whether or not they're going to be successful going into the playoffs this season. So all that being said, I would like to invite folks to go check out quakesepicenter.com. That's where you can find our articles, our salary spreadsheet by Colin Etnier. You can find information about our Patreon, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen. For just $2 a month, you can get access to our Patreon. You can become a patron. And with that, you get early access to some of the videos and articles that we have there on the site. For $5 a month, you get access to the Slack, which we reference throughout the show. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of chatter with folks who are patrons who pay $5 a month to contribute to Quakes Epicenter. And yeah, it gives us the opportunity to do the things that we do, to go down to the field at Stanford Stadium, to continue to provide coverage of this team throughout the season. And really, and in my opinion, and kudos to you guys, Alex and Jamon especially, getting access to the press conference. And what seems from my perspective, as somebody who doesn't ask questions during the press conference, it really seems like this setup works well for us as an organization. I don't think it's a coincidence that we have this opportunity to be able to speak to the coach and the players in the form that we do. And so a lot of that goes to folks who contribute to Quakes Epicenter. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. Now, you can follow us on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, and right here on YouTube. You can like and subscribe, and set on those notifications.
Like, subscribe, notify. It's huge. You got to subscribe.
It is, and also, yeah, I want to make sure you actually, please, if you're enjoying the show, subscribe. We are getting so close to the 1,000 subscribers, and that actually opens up things for us on our end if we make it to that point. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. The other thing too is, guys,
opens up stuff for the fans as well. But there are some changes to YouTube rules. We're going to try to get some access to some things, but to get the full everything, we have to get to 1,000.
Thank you. Yeah, so to the full everything, we need to get to 1,000. In the meantime, too, make sure you follow us on Threads. We are on the new Mark Zuckerberg side of the Mark Zuckerberg Elon Musk battle. So we'll see how that goes. But Threads is up. We're actually we're on Twitter still. We're on Threads. We're on both sides. We're kind of going with things. We're kind of seeing how it goes. Go check it out. And yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. Turn on those notifications. We'll see you on Wednesday night after the Sounders game. And until then, thanks for joining us tonight on the Aftershock. Take care.